Welcome back into the CBS Sports Eye on College Basketball podcast. If you are watching on YouTube, we appreciate you always, and we appreciate the old school by the phone listeners. You are a massive army, and thank you so much. And again, to anyone that has found this podcast recently, for whatever reasons you might have found it, however you landed on us in the past couple of days or couple of weeks, we appreciate you. Hope you stick around. There are going to be so many episodes for you this month. Full-on college hoops overload. David Cobb is joining me for our SEC tournament preview episode. Cobb, I tell you what, he's bounced all around the country. What I don't even know. What state are you in right now?
Well, actually, I'm in the state where the SEC tournament will be contested. I'm in Tennessee and planning to make my way over to Nashville and be at Bridgestone Arena Thursday through Saturday for some of this tournament. So I was glad that you guys let me come on and talk about this one.
There's no letting. We want you to be here, and we're happy that you're here, and thank you for obliging us. So, yes, we are going to talk SEC tournament on this episode. This is our second of six Big Six conference tournament preview episodes. And the SEC tournament is going to be in Nashville. Cobb will be on hand. It's going to run Wednesday through Sunday. The title game will air 1 Eastern on Sunday on ESPN. The SEC tournament title game, famously or infamously, seems to matter less and less each season, no matter if the team in that or the teams in that game stand to theoretically be boosted on the seed line in the tournament. It never seems to happen all that much. Going to be an intriguing one for sure. The bracket in this one has some similar vibes. If you're watching, you can see Nada has put up the bracket. Thank you for that, buddy. Appreciate you so much. You can see how there's a lot of potential for some noise, some chaos, and some good variance in this one. For you, as we look at this bracket, let's talk storylines as we do off the top. What? I think it's obvious, but I'm going to tee you up anyway. What is the prevailing storyline of this SEC tournament as we get ready for it to get underway on Wednesday?
Yeah, I think from a national perspective, the most interesting thing is seeing whether or not Alabama can get back on track. Since the Brandon Miller revelations, they really haven't been the same. The last 4 games, I mean, obviously they started out with that overtime win at South Carolina. 2 close wins followed that, and then they lost at Texas A&M. And over his last 3, Brandon Miller is 4 of 24 from three-point range. I mean, these guys were blowing people out for the majority of the conference slate. In the last couple of weeks, that just hasn't been the case. So can Alabama, who is likely to be a number 1 seed for the NCAA tournament, start to look like itself again? Because if it can't, I think that's going to impact how far a lot of people select Alabama to go in the big dance.
Yeah, that in addition to everything with the Brandon Miller, Jaden Bradley story, that's going to continue to be a thing. We will see if either player winds up speaking to media this week in Nashville. Would fully anticipate just a nothing but no comment situation, which they're all obviously entitled to do if they get asked about that stuff. But if not, then the NCAA tournament obviously comes after that. Correlation isn't necessarily causation in this specific instance here, but since the story and Brandon Miller's and Bradley's involvement in the scene that led to the killing of Jamia Harris, since that became publicly known, Alabama has been stumbling since, and the attention's only just going to get more, and so that story will continue to move along, and it is the biggest thing heading into the SEC tournament. Some could argue it's actually still the biggest thing heading into the conference tournaments, although while college basketball's universe has so many plot lines just emerging left and right across the country, from a national standpoint, certainly that ranks near, if not at the top. Other one, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, from an off the court, put the off the court stuff aside, this team reminds me in this moment, and we'll see this week whether or not this is true or not, but they remind me a little bit in this moment of last year's Auburn team. So dominant throughout the regular season, rising to number 1 on the back of a projected lottery pick and dynamic forward in Jabari Smith. Similar games, mind you, as well, with Jabari Smith's 3-point shot and Brandon Miller as well. And then down the stretch, it's just like Auburn petered out a little bit last year. Still had a really nice seeding for the NCAA tournament, but they couldn't recapture their former glory, I suppose. And I do wonder, are we seeing that come to fruition with Alabama here? So that's, I don't know, a comparison to make there within the state of Alabama from just a year ago. I'm not saying for sure that's happening. It just feels like things are trending in that direction from an on-court standpoint for Alabama.
For those listening, a reminder on the seeding here: Bama's the 1, Texas A&M's the 2, Kentucky's the 3, and Mizzou, yeah, it's the 4 seed. Tennessee's the 5, Vandy's the 6. Vandy's the 6. Auburn's the 7. Florida is the 8. My storyline, another one to keep an eye on, is just Kentucky in general. Wildcats have gotten their act together and have started to give that fan base some real cause for optimism, which was not there until 2.5 weeks ago, basically. I mean, they're just fits and starts for this program, but Kentucky is positioning itself well heading into the SEC tournament. Right now, like at worst, it would be a 6 seed in the tournament, in my opinion, in the NCAA tournament. And how that team comports itself going in is going to be very intriguing there. Oscar Tshiebwe is the reigning National Player of the Year. He hasn't been a first-team All-American. Really hasn't been a second-team All-American at this point. So, thankfully enough, Antonio Reeves has come to life and been major. Casey Wallace, we wait on when he will return. Severe Wheeler still out. Jacob Toppin has been good. Still a team with holes. CJ Frederick has not been available the entire season, so we wait on that. But Kentucky and what it does, it's always a storyline. But because it's gotten its act together and won 5 of its past 6, the only loss happening by 2 at home to Vandy, but Vandy's been hot, is something else certainly to keep an eye on. Any other thoughts on the bracket before we get into the players to know here?
Yeah, I mean, the most interesting game to me in the more preliminary side of things is Arkansas and Auburn. Auburn's lost 8 of its last 12, even after beating Tennessee to close the regular season. They are considered a bubble team at this point still by Jerry Palm entering the SEC tournament. And then Arkansas, I just thought they were going to get it together once Nick Smith got back. I still think all the ingredients are there, but they're limping into this tournament on the heels of 3 straight losses. In fact, they're just 2-5 since Nick Smith returned to the lineup. And statistically, he's been really great in the games that he has started since he's returned over the last few weeks. But the Hogs, are they safe? I mean, Palm technically doesn't have them on the bubble, but I mean, they're a 9 seed. I suppose there's a scenario here where things get a little dicey for them.
I think they're safe. You bring up a good point. I think Auburn's in. It's a lock. I made my case for that on Sunday night's episode. Because I just, at a certain point, man, you get a lot of these resumes, and there's only one more game for some of these teams, right? And then some teams will get 2 or 3 more in their conference tournaments, depending on how they win. I think Auburn has done enough. It's 9-10 in quad 1. Arkansas is actually super interesting. So Arkansas has 3 quad 1 wins. It's 7-11 in the top 2 quadrants with a quad 3 loss. There are some. How about this? There are Michigan vibes here, except the computers are all in on Arkansas, so it's safe. Right now, Arkansas ranks 21st or better in every predictive metric of the 6 team sheets. And then the 2 resume metrics, you hear me mention those a lot. I'll repeat them again. KPI, this has nothing to do with how much you've beat a team by, what you're projected to be. This is strictly on who you've beat. Total resume, that's it. 24 there. It's 42nd in strength of record. Arkansas is vulnerable, but I think it's going to get in. But there's a ton of fascinating stuff happening with that team, from the players it has available, what it has and hasn't done. It's skidding into this bracket, and the resume is up. It's like Arkansas is like Providence. It's up for some real scrutiny. So I'm glad you brought that up. It's certainly a good point and something to keep an eye on. Some players to know. Okay, go ahead. You have one more thought?
I was just saying, like, they go to Rupp and crush Kentucky without Nick Smith, and then Nick Smith comes back, the number 1 overall prospect in the nation, true freshman, and they haven't improved. But Muss is the type who, over time, always gets players to gel together and always seems to get the most out of his roster as the season goes along. So there's that part of me that just can't let Arkansas go. So they're not the team that I'm going to pick as my, bid thief or like dark horse or whatever, but they are a team that I think is potentially dangerous and among the most intriguing of any in the country this week.
That's a 7 Eastern tip on Thursday on the SEC network. Loser of Arkansas Auburn. Just track it for where they wind up in the bracket. That'll certainly be intriguing. Some players to know. Brandon Miller is obviously the most accomplished player. He's the most talented player in the league, 19.6 points per game. Antonio Reeves is averaging 14.2 for the season, but he has been one of the 3 best players in the conference in the past minute here or so. We got a couple of fourths in this league that you got to know. Ricky Council, the 4th from Arkansas, and Wade Taylor, the 4th at Texas A&M, who's a really, really good point guard. Both those guys are averaging 16.5 points per game. Kobe Brown at Mizzou is another name I'd give you. Kobe Brown's good enough when you look at that bracket there, and Mizzou's just chilling on the 4 line. Maybe Alabama is. is ripe to get picked off. And if it doesn't happen in his first game, does it happen in the semis? And could Mizzou maybe be that team? We'll see. It's going to be Tennessee or Missouri almost definitely. In fact, I'll say definitely. Ole Miss and South Carolina have no shot at getting to the semis here. So either Tennessee or Mizzou will wind up facing off in that semifinal on the top half of the bracket there. Kobe Brown's a really good player and has done it for a while. And I'm really excited for him and that Missouri team with Dennis Gates to have a chance to add to the resume. They're obviously going to the NCAA tournament, and that's certainly something to keep an eye on. Any players I did not mention, Cobb, that kind of sticked out to you from an SEC standpoint? Just wanted to give a couple there, but Miller, Reeves, Council, Taylor, and Kobe Brown were 5 off the top of my head.
Yes, Matt. In fact, I'm going to give you this individual stat line from the last 11 games and make you guess who it is I'm talking about.
I love this. All right, let's have it.
All right, the individual in question here, over his last 11 games, averaging 18.3 points per game, 8.9 rebounds, that's kind of a giveaway, and also 2.3 assists while shooting 62.2% from the floor. That's over this person's last 11 games. Who am I talking about?
Give me that stat line one more time.
18.3, 8.9, 2.3 on 62.2 from the floor.
Man, you might have.
I'll give you a hint here. YouTube hint. You see what I'm doing on the YouTube with what have I got here?
Oh, is it Smith at Mississippi State?
Yeah, I'm ringing my cowbell for those of you.
Yeah, you want to go obscure. That is, look at you.
No, and nothing obscure about it. He's one of the best players in the league over the last 6 weeks. You compare his stat line to Oscar Tshiebwe's over that same time. In Oscar's last 11 games, 16.1, 11.6. So he does have him beat on the glass. No surprise there. On 52.6% shooting. So best big man in the SEC right now, it's not Oscar. It's Tolu Smith at Mississippi State.
Good stuff. Let's talk bubble teams here. Teams that need to get at least one win to have their name called on Selection Sunday. Arkansas, Auburn, we talked to them. They should be safe, but just intriguing stuff to watch. Mississippi State feels like the only team that actually qualifies here. Vandy, I'm getting to you in just a second. Hold on. All team sheet metrics as we record this on Monday afternoon for Mississippi State, between 40 and 54. 7 and 10 in the top 2 quadrants. They do have the loss against Georgia. Mississippi State is probably, if you want them in the field right now, they're one of the last 2 or 3 in, I would think. 4 quad 1 wins. I could go either way with this team. I would strongly advise Klanga gets the win over Florida. I think it's out if it loses. Cobb, I got to think you agree.
Yeah, you can't lose that game against a Florida team that doesn't have Colin Castleton. So talking about Tolu Smith, no excuse for him not to eat in that game against the Gators. And then, you look at Mississippi State in a potential quarterfinal matchup with Alabama. They took Alabama down to the wire in Tuscaloosa several weeks back before the Brandon Miller stuff came out. So I don't think they'll necessarily be in any way, shape, or form intimidated by a potential quarterfinal game against Alabama. So, I mean, tipping my hand here, but Mississippi State is sort of my dark horse. And they might even qualify, as a quote unquote bid thief, given where they stand as one of the last 4 in at the moment, according to Jerry Palm. So, they're a dangerous team, a team that's been playing well over the last few weeks. And yeah, absolute must win against a Florida team that only chance at this point for them would be to run the table. And that's not going to happen without Castleton.
Now let's talk Vandy real quick. This was a 10-12 team entering February. It has won 8 of its past 9. The only loss at LSU, the 15 seed in this conference, but it is closing in. It just needs to make a run here in the tournament, because right now its metrics just don't support an at-large case. 83 in the net, 85 in BPI, 81 in KenPom, 70 in Sagarin. It is healthy in KPI at 40, and then 52 in strength of record. But it's sub 500 quad 1, quad 2. But it's a good record, 9 and 10. That's better than a lot of other teams. And then it's got the 3 combined Q3, Q4 losses, which is what's dragging it down. Vandy, I can't call you a bubble team yet. You need to beat Kentucky. If Vandy beats Kentucky, we've got a really interesting conversation, but you got to do it. We'll keep an eye on that. Jerry Stackhouse has done a really, really good job. And on that note, as I transition, Vandy is my pick for bid thief or a fringe bubble team that can win it. If I'm looking at this bracket right here, if you're watching on YouTube, please again, go ahead. You don't even have to smash. How about just a little touch for us if you could. Appreciate you so much. Vandy over Kentucky is not inconceivable because, hello, we just saw it happen. And then you got Arkansas, A&M, or Auburn in the semis. all those teams, that is a gettable situation. So I do expect the SEC, similar to what we talked about on the Big Ten episode, to be. I think there's going to be. I think, Cobb, we are going to see in these conference tournaments a level of exciting finishes, but results on balance that are going to reflect what we just watched for 3.5 months. I mean, there had never been more ranked teams that lost to unranked opponents this season than ever before. This was the most in any given season we'd ever seen that. And ranked teams in total took more losses in the regular season than any season before. So I think these conference tournaments are going to reflect that. And I think that you're going to have at most 2 1 seeds of the Big Six leagues win their conference tournaments. 2. I set the over-under on HQ at 1.5. I'm saying it's 2. I do think Alabama has a chance to be one of them, but my long shot, dark horse, bid thief candidate, it's Vandy on the 6 line. Who do you got?
Yeah, I'm going Mississippi State, and it's just because I'm a little worried about the sustainability with Vanderbilt now that Liam Robbins is done. That's a tough pill for them to swallow, and I know they overcame that in their regular season finale, and like all the credit in the world goes to Stack for figuring this thing out and going from a coach who I thought was on the hot seat in early January to one who is now receiving widespread praise for doing an incredible job. And that praise will only grow if he does manage to piece something together here without their big man in Liam Robbins. But yeah, Mississippi State is that team for me. You go back and look, they were 1-7 to start the league play this year, but it's because 4 of their first 8 games in league were against either Alabama or Tennessee. It was just an absolutely front-loaded schedule. And now they're deep into year 1 under Chris Jans. It seems like that roster understands how he wants to play. And Tolu Smith is on an incredible heater. So, yeah, Mississippi State's that team that I think could, I would pick to sort of make a surprise run here this week.
You mentioned hot seat stuff. The only situation in the SEC where that applies, Ole Miss already fired Kermit Davis. Everyone else, as things stand right now anyway, not expected to have any other coaching changes in that league. Before we pick our title game matchup and winner, I got to ask you about your Vols. Just got talk on them real quick here. They're the 5 seed, no Ziegler, out for the year with an ACL. Tennessee was thought to maybe potentially be the 1 seed in this conference, a couple months back. And we look up here, they assemble a bracket. It shakes out like this. UT on the 5 line. What should Tennessee fans expect, and what is reasonable for both, this SEC tournament, but for the rest of March?
Yeah, I mean, just for those who may not be aware, Zakai Ziegler, starting point guard, sort of the heartbeat of the team. He's done for the year. 5'9" dynamo, underlooked prospect, sophomore. Brutal injury there for him. Other than that, I had pretty detailed notes for every team I thought we might discuss here on this pod. And then for Tennessee, I said, who knows, man?
Yeah, there we go.
That's how I feel about it. The offensive struggles are what they are. The defensive element of it is still incredibly impressive. They're number 1 in the country still at KenPom in defensive efficiency, at least at last check. So I like the potential second round matchup against Missouri. That's a team that won on a buzzer beater in Knoxville in a really crazy game a few weeks back. Here's the deal. I just don't trust Tennessee to string wins together. The offensive struggles, especially without Ziegler, are going to be too much for them to overcome and string victories together. I just don't have a lot of faith in them to do that at this point.
What do you got in the title game, Cobb? Who do you got winning this thing?
Yeah, I guess I'm going a little off the beaten path here in the sense of, I don't have Alabama playing for the title. Okay. I have Texas A&M beating Missouri.
Look at you
in the SEC.
A chance to get to A&M because we haven't talked a bunch about them. Why are you in? Did you say A&M over Mizzou? And that is within the realm of possibility, no doubt about it. Why A&M? What is it about that team that gives you a certain level of confidence heading here into the week?
Well, Wade Taylor is just the most overlooked player probably in the country. The sophomore guard for Texas A&M on a heater recently. All right, I got some more stats for you. 21.3 over his last 8. And that's on only 36.6 from inside the arc, but he's shooting 43% from beyond the arc. And he's getting to the free throw line at a ridiculous clip. 8.5 made free throws per game over his last 8. Texas A&M leads the country in free throw attempts per game. They make a decent amount of them. They're going to get to the line. That's a steady source of income for them. Getting to the free throw line. I don't know. They've just been one of the best teams in the league over the last couple months. I think if you sorted at Bart Torvik, as you guys have enlightened me on, Texas A&M ranks as the number 6 team in the country since the beginning of February. So They're playing good ball at the right time, and I think this means something to them too, because last year they got all the way to the final. They lost to Tennessee. Buzz Williams, was displeased that they didn't make the NCAA tournament. I think there's a redemption element at play here. And when you get down to the conference tournament season, what do you have to play for? To me, that's a huge tell in what a team's going to bring you in a given week. In Alabama, what do they have to play for? They might be secure on the one line.
They got to play for a 1 seed. They can't. There's enough there, and they probably in that locker room. They probably they've built up some opponents, both real and imaginary, to push. I wouldn't discount Alabama's motivations.
Okay, we'll see how it plays out. But I like A&M over Missouri. Missouri's offense is incredible. They're a tough matchup. They've won their last 4 heading into the tournament. So you got I just look at the 2 hottest teams in the league, in Texas A&M and Missouri. You could argue that Mississippi State is in that group as well, but in that sense, I'm going Aggies over Tigers.
I will go Kentucky losing to Bama in the title game. I'll go with Bama. I will take Alabama, which is the most talented team in the league. But I am fascinated to see how the next 3 games will go if it gets to be 3 games for the Crimson Tide. I will say this is one of the conferences where the 1 seed wins. I think Kentucky A&M has the best chance to be the most entertaining game in this conference tournament. That said, I mean, it could come from anywhere, but I could see those 2 teams really battling out to a fun game. Kentucky won the one and only matchup between those 2 programs back in January. That was a home game in Rupp, and UK got the win. That's a rare instance, by the way, of A&M taking an L. It only has 3. Texas A&M has only lost 3 times since December 20th, to Cobb's point about the team playing hot. But I'll go Bama winning, and in doing so, securing a 1 seed. Kentucky in that situation with a loss, Kentucky getting to the SEC title game. Then again, that doesn't even matter. I could see if Kentucky gets to the title game, though, there could be a case, a 5 or 6 seed. I'd have to see what happens around them. It should be pretty interesting. As we wrap, I want to ask you one more time. Looking forward to being on site there, to taking this all in person. Big conference tournament. Will this be your first time covering a big league tournament in person, or have you done it before?
For CBS, it will be. Yeah. I did cover a couple of SEC tournaments when I was on the Tennessee beat back in the day. I was in St. Louis. Oh, gosh, that was the year I think that Kentucky had like Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. They ended up winning that tournament. And then I was in Nashville when Tennessee and Kentucky played again. Man, this is bad. I can't even remember who played in the title games when I was there, but I've been to a couple of SEC tournaments before. So it's a good time. There's some really interesting stories in the SEC right now, in particular with Alabama and with Kentucky too, and beyond that. So yeah, it'll be a good time. It's a crazy, crazy week. I won't just be working on SEC tournament stuff while I'm there. We'll be running around like crazy, getting all the conference tournament stuff updated on the site. So hopefully the Wi-Fi connection is strong. Fingers crossed on that. And hopefully the free meals are tasty.
We shall see. He's at David W. Cobb with 2 B's. David W. Cobb on Twitter. Please follow him. He does awesome work for us at CBSSports.com. And of course, occasionally hops on the pod. He will have more appearances as the month goes along. And he does stuff for the YouTube channel as well. Cobb, I appreciate you so much. Best of luck on your episode with Parrish coming up soon here. Thank you to everyone again for checking and listening. We got 4 more of these coming right down the pike over the next 2 days. Stay tuned. More coming at you real quick.